Okay, hello. So I've been working on the Claude Spark project. It might change its name because I made some changes. Um, but to explain where I'm coming from is that I don't like how I've been using AI because I've been using AI in full agent mode, like through a CLI or similar kinds of abstractions where I kind of just prompt it and it does a lot of things for me. And I feel like I lose my touch with code. I lose decision making in generating the code, and I don't own the resulting code. But agents are still very powerful. And the thing about agents is that they work at a project level. You kind of prompt at the project level, like the root workspace, and then it dynamically retrieves context. But there is this other type of agent that hasn't really been re-explored, I think, because we started with AI in inline inside files, like autocomplete. We got the tabbing feature. All of these features are really, really great. But as we explored like project level agents, I don't think we considered like going back and thinking about inline agents. And even though we have kind of inline agents, and this is where my own experience is lacking, um, we do have like inline prompting, but those are very different mechanisms and experiences from the full agent. And I was thinking like, how can we make a true inline agent that actually uses a proper agent harness? It can do everything the full agent can do, only it's scoped down to the exact line you're looking at, and it will operate optimally on that line. And then as you like cover more stuff, it will just act as an agent. And the way that needs to work is that it works inside a project file, and it needs deterministic context. Like it can't just go around and collect information like it does at the project level, because that slows it down. So there's this tension between these two solutions where full agent has a very long session length. The inline agent needs to have as short as possible. The full agent breaks your like personal momentum, but it generates its own momentum, while as inline agent is about keeping your personal momentum. It's about giving you insight so you know everything that's happening, because it's just changing out code. While the full agent doesn't give you that much insight. Well, you have the insanely large conversation, but that's like boring to read. And you typically don't jump into code. And then in terms of decision making, with a full agent, the agent makes a lot of the decisions. With an inline agent, you are making all the decisions. And again, you have the full ownership of what's generated, as opposed to a full agent where you don't have that. Again, full agents are super, super powerful, but I don't think they're powerful for actual coding, like code that you want to own and decide how it should look, and so on. So, a tiny demo. You'll have to excuse me rushing through this. It's morning. I don't have that much time. I promised our youngest we're gonna have a gaming day as the vacation is over. But what we can see here is I just set up this very, very simple project. And if I go in here and I trigger my inline prompt and I say change to super counter. Now what happens in the background is that it's actually using the Pi harness, using the Haiku model of Claude to make that inline change. And you can see it did that in about a second. And for me, that's fast enough, right? That's the whole point. It needs to be fast enough. It shouldn't break your momentum. So from my perspective, you kind of have a couple of seconds for that, depending on what you're changing. And now you can see that it was done. It has this like indicator what it actually changed, and I can save it, or I can just undo it, right? I don't understand why these inline prompting has this approval thing. It's like you want a YOLO mode this stuff, right? Because it's just making minimal changes. So yeah, I'm kind of, as an experience, it's really shitty, the other ones. Anyways, but then we can go in and I can say, and also that you have to do this selection stuff. I don't understand that. Like, we have these collapsible blocks, right, in the editor. So when I have my cursor at a block, it's going to identify that block, right? So you just put your cursor in natural positions. And if you put it at the top, it means you're looking at the whole file. So if I go in here and I say, replace buttons with UI components, what you're going to see now, it changed to blue. You saw that? And that means that it's going kind of agentic. It's going outside the file. And the way we identify that is simply by looking at the first tool call of the harness. So if it makes an edit to the current file, then we keep it orange. But if it goes outside and does other tool calls, then it turns blue. So you kind of get that like mental indication that, oh, this is going to take a little bit more time. It took more than a couple of seconds. But I think that's a really nice feature. And then how did it kind of understand all of this? So I talked about deterministic context. So when you're looking at a file, the system goes, or the extension goes and finds the closest Claude MD file or agent MD file. And in here, I describe how to write code for the component. Like, this is just Claude MD. But the point is that we're not really taking advantage of this. Because when you're at project level, like, there's no default system prompt of Claude that tells it to go and keep these Claude MD files up to date for different folders. But in this concept, you're very reliant on the Claude MD file. This is the file that actually tells your prompting here how to generate code. So and it's much easier to keep that up to date if you're actually generating code yourself. So when I initially created this code, I wanted to, for example, use function hoisting to move event handlers down at the bottom. So I asked it to do that, and then I went into Claude and told it, again, I just tell it to generate it, right? But I'm like at a micro level, making these conventions and patterns and everything. And the cool thing about that is when you go project mode, which I do by going here. Now I'm in project mode. So when you do that, you still have your Claude MD file. So your project level agent is also going to be better at actually doing like refactors and doing other kinds of work. Another cool thing here is that when you reference other folders and files, that's something that the agent is aware of. And if you were to reference a folder, when we pass in the system prompt to the agent, it's going to expand that folder into the specific file names, kind of like doing a directory listing, and actually inline those files into the system prompt. Not the contents, but just the file names. And that makes it much faster, because when I, for example, asked about changing out the buttons here, it actually knew that there was a button file inside the UI components folder and was able to read that instantly and understand how it works so that it can use it. And then in my UI components folder, I have my own Claude MD file where I define how I want to, like, just when you just generate, like, it will use, sometimes it use interfaces for props, sometimes it use type for props. Like, there's so many things you want to keep on track to generate the code you think looks good and is manageable. And yeah, props restrictions. Yeah, I don't like that we extend HTML attributes, for example, on UI components. Like, these are things that you want to really keep up to date and consistent in your code base. And that, nothing, like no, none of this works out of the box, right? And can't work out of the box. You need an experience that makes it natural and seamless for you to reason about this stuff. Of course. So, oh, sorry. So you might ask about skills. So skills makes a lot of sense for a full agent, like MCP server, like MCP server-ish. Like you use a skill with CLI tools instead of necessarily an MCP server. And even MCP servers and web search and all of that stuff makes a lot of sense for a full agent. But an inline agent is only about reading and writing files, nothing else. Because that's coding, right? So I don't have like skills here, because skills are more about like doing things in the system, rather than like coding conventions. Coding conventions should be in Claude MD files, in my opinion, because they are scoped to specific folders. So you want different rules for different folders. You want to define the folder responsibility and all of this stuff. One thing I forgot to mention is when I activate the prompt here, you can see I get these indicators. So it just shows me, oh, that's a bug. You shouldn't show that folder. But it's going to show you the context you have. So it shows the Claude MD file, and since the Claude MD file references the UI components folder, you see an indicated there as well. So you kind of see what context am I like providing to this prompt as I'm running this. So yeah, like for me, the final thing is just optimizing this now. It's definitely fast enough, at least in my opinion. And I just love that we're using PyDev here, like an actual agent harness. I tried using Claude Code, but it takes 12 freaking seconds to just start the session for Claude Code. So it's like a complete no-go. But the good thing about Pi is that it supports any provider. And I'm really looking forward to, like as I said, I'm using Haiku here. And I want to try open source models because they are faster and should be very capable of doing this. I'm going to try that tomorrow. And also another aspect, again, sorry for going so fast. Another aspect here is that it's also hooking into Copilot. So if you have a Copilot subscription, you can just install the extension and start using it. So it's using Haiku through Copilot. But you can also choose Anthropic and then paste in your API key, and it's going to use that instead. And then there will be more providers. But yeah, I feel like there's something to this. Like we're all trying to solve. We're going, like it feels like a horse out of control. This full agent gonna do all our coding. It just makes me really, really sad. I don't think that's how we wanna work as engineers. And people are talking about like, oh, but you're not a coder anymore. You're just gonna go up your career ladder and become a project manager, but I don't want to be that. This is what I want to do. I want to write code. And then you can argue, well, too bad. You're not going to be fast enough. But we'll see, right? We'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyways, I hope you liked it. Please give me any feedback. I haven't published the extension yet. I'm going to do that later today. I'm just going to make some small adjustments. But yeah, cool. Bye-bye.